Tex on Tex. This is Jed Sundwall. I'm back with George Dyson again, the three-peat guest. We filmed this at Downhall in Essex in the UK a few weeks ago, earlier this month in October. And it's a short one. We kept it kind of tight because we were both pretty tired. We'd gone through a day-and-a-half workshop about climate data infrastructure that Radiant Earth had convened there in Essex with a bunch of people. It was amazing. And we recorded a keynote that George gave while at the event. And so I'll put that in the show notes so you can watch that if this next hour of George discussion about the Black Cloud isn't enough for you. He's an awesome guy. I also am very proud to say that I asked George if he would be the staff historian of Radiant Earth, which is a volunteer position that we would only offer to him, and he said yes. So he's on the staff at Radiant Earth, although without any kind of paycheck or anything like that. But this is, if you like the other episodes with George, you're going to like this one. The Black Cloud is a great book. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's an easy read. It's a fun read about the clash between science and governing, and the fact that governments have a certain mentality around sharing of information that clashes with the needs of science. And so it's a topic very rich for discussion. It has been a topic rich for discussion for a long time. It feels especially relevant again in 2025, unfortunately. But this is a great conversation. You're going to have fun. See you on the other side. All right, George, welcome back to Tex on Tex.
Yes, great to be here. I mean, third time. I feel very privileged and delinquent because people, I mentioned to several people I'm doing this science fiction podcast, and they tell me all the recent great books that I should read.
Okay.
That I haven't.
Yeah, this has been my experience as well. When I started this podcast, it's resulted in way too many book recommendations, and and actually, I was joking with somebody here. So we are, for anyone watching the video, we're at Downhall in the UK recording this, where we just did an event about climate data, and I was, lovingly telling them, they're like, "How did you get to know George?" And I told sort of the backstory of how I met you through Esther and how I knew Lauren, and I said, I'm doing this podcast, and again, you gave me a list of like 10 books or something like that to talk about. So
5.
Was it just 5? Okay.
Yeah, the one we
it was a lot.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, here we are, we're living in the Black Cloud. It's
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So let's just get right into it. You already have your bona fides. We know you're a technologist. Tell me about your experience with the Black Cloud.
Yes. So, I came to this with you with this narrow definition of science fiction. It has to be good fiction written by a good scientist.
Right.
And unfortunately, also, these books are all from my childhood, so they're 50 years old. So
Yeah.
I read The Black Cloud. Freeman, my father, just had all the science fiction, and I would read anything on the shelf. This was one of those books. I think it came out in 1957.
Yeah.
He probably had a copy from Fred Hoyle, who was a hardworking astronomer
Right.
at that time, and I just ate all that stuff up and believed it in the sense that it's the story of an encounter with a true, real alien intelligence, not creatures in UFOs, but
Like a humanoid or something. Yeah.
Right. A very absolutely non-human, full-on intelligence in the way we don't understand now at all.
Yeah.
And I grew up thinking that would happen. I mean, the framing is so good because the book, most of it takes place in a British country estate,
right,
where the officials are trying to decide how to save their political careers, without much care about the other countries of the world.
Yeah.
And he's of course making that point.
Yeah.
And here we are in the same place. But I as a child, I expected that would happen. I mean, in my 20 years ahead, I thought, oh yes, this, we're going to have a meeting when we, because as we were building all these new radio telescopes.
Right.
And my father was deeply aware of always talking about that. And Fred Hoyle was, I mean, if you were an astronomer, you were a radio astronomer at that time. That was the exciting stuff.
Yeah.
And we thought we're sure we're going to get those signals and start communicating. And the government, well, of course, they were doing this all in secret.
Right.
So we thought, oh, surely, like kind of like today, that the government must have the secrets, it's
Right.
just not telling us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, man, it's such an entertaining book. I mean, I will, I'll summarize it for the listeners, and then and then explain yet again just how interesting it is that we are at an English estate right now, discussing this. So the story of the Black Cloud is, first of all, it's kind of funny to me in the sense that it is written by an astronomer, and it's a story about why astronomers are supremely important, because it's astronomers that identify this cloud. I guess it's a cloud of gas or something like that. Of material, but it's a cloud coming from interstellar space towards our solar system, and they can see it coming. If you've seen the movie Don't Look Up, it's very similar. It's not a comet that's coming to get us, but it's a cloud, and they can see that it's going to be calamitous, and they have to go to the authorities, and the authorities don't quite know what to do with the information. And but the long story short is that this group of sort of rebel astronomers who also have a really robust understanding of digital communication make themselves like the center of the world. They are basically world headquarters as this happens, and but their center of the world is at a remote English estate. Now we can get into a few more plot points, but I'll just say here we are here at Down Hall in Essex because we did a convening about climate research where somewhat similar. It's kind of uncanny. There are a bunch of scientists for a long time have been able to detect some form of calamity or change that we're not really prepared for coming, and political actors have routinely failed to do anything useful about it for all sorts of political economy reasons. And so once again, we have to retreat to an English country estate and try to figure out what to do about this. Um, Anyhow, I guess the only other thing I'll say about the book, and we should talk about some more plot points about when the cloud comes and communicating with it and all this, but when I first read it, I've read it twice now because I reread it in anticipation of this. I read it the first time you recommended it. The first time I read it, I was like, he needs a better editor because it's a kind of a slow procedural, but then it gets really good. It's actually a super entertaining book, and it's not that long. I recommend it to people. It's a fun read.
Yes, and it's
Yeah.
severely dated in the sense that it is set in that old Britain of the Cambridge fellows,
Yeah.
and he makes fun of it too, but everything revolves around feasts and port and ale
Yeah.
and living they go to Pasadena, which is, of course, Fred, I read it as a child, and I read it in my treehouse where this copy came from, and then I just read it just now on the plane. I mean, just skimmed it, but he he throws in all these little inside jokes, like the amateur who finds the cloud. There's an amateur
Yes.
somewhere. He's named George Green, and George Green was a very important mathematician who actually was a miller. He was not an academic, and he discovered Green's functions, which are used in everything by mathematical physicists.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it can't be coincidence. I mean, he must have called this guy George Green to.
Interesting. Well, that's one note I took on this is that okay, so we'll go through maybe point by point, but so there's an initial astronomer in California, like I think a Norwegian guy, who first notices that some stars are missing and there's something, weird going on. So he first identifies the cloud and, sends a signal out like something's going on here. They confirm there's definitely something going on. And then simultaneously, it's an amateur group of astronomers in the UK. It's
Just
not the Royal
No, it's
Society.
just one guy who built his own telescope, and it's
Well, people are doing calculations on the positions of the planets, and so it was at an amateur astronomy convention or meeting where somebody's like, the planets are not where they're supposed to be, and I thought that was insightful because my my read on that is that the sort of professional class and like royal astronomers would just dismiss any evidence like that, they'd be like, well, then you must be wrong because that's just not possible. But there's this group of of amateurs that were willing to entertain this weird notion and figure out like, well, what's going on here? And based on their calculations, they figured there's something of a certain mass that's approaching our solar system that's making this happen.
Yes, and
Yeah.
also this was pre-dark matter. Now we sort of recognize
Oh wow.
dark matter, but at that time, Fred Hoyle was most famous for coining the term Big Bang,
Oh, I didn't know that.
but
Okay.
but he didn't believe in the Big Bang. He thought the Big Bang was he was a steady state guy. He thought the Big Bang was totally wrong. So Big Bang was his derogatory term for this.
Interesting. Now, do you? I don't. I know nothing about. What even would this field of research be called?
Cosmology.
Cosmology? I was going to say.
Yeah,
I'm like, it's not
and he
astrology.
and and Fred Hoyle,
Yeah.
he also was not loved by, I think, a lot of academics because he became a popularizer. Like he was sort of the archetype for Carl Sagan
Oh,
or Neil Tyson,
Neil deGrasse
Neil
Tyson.
deGrasse
Yeah.
Tyson, of going out to the public directly
Okay.
and and hosting a BBC science show and that sort. So he was very much a media figure.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm ambivalent about celebrity scientists myself. They simplify stuff too much. So yeah, I can understand why he might not. That'd be controversial, but his respect for the dead and he's old and whatever. But I just think the book is great. Like, and he does. Yeah, really does some really remarkable work on earth science and explaining, I don't know, like the idea of the atmosphere getting scraped off by the cloud or otherwise blown off by these jets that the cloud was able to shoot out. It all seemed very, very believable and sort of very plausible the way he writes about it. It felt like proper hard sci-fi to me.
Yes,
You know.
and of course it's so analogous to exactly what we're doing here. I mean, which to me it is sort of like Alice in Wonderland. I mean, I came here to give this little historical introduction about the beginnings of numerical meteorology 100 years ago,
Yeah.
and then I left off 50, 70, actually it's more like 75 years ago when the von Neumann meteorological group was convened to work on this problem,
Yeah.
climate prediction, and then here I am, and it's not my field. I've been totally uninvolved, and then to come here and see these people just routinely pulling out their laptop and accessing, databases that are 5 petabytes over
Yeah.
100 gigabyte per second channels,
Yeah.
and able to do that from their pocket.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and it's on a scale that we don't understand. I mean, it's exactly what the black cloud is about, and I think, again, I'm just waiting for the day when the group convenes at the estate to Mr. President or Mr. Prime Minister, convenes all the heads of state that we actually have real AI, and it's not this commercialized
yeah, it's nothing we
spiritual
control.
stuff.
Yeah.
It is actually has free will, and
Yeah.
that will be the moment. That's just the same as seeing the black cloud coming from interstellar space.
Yeah. I mean, this book does have these wonderful sort of hints at the future in that way. There's one. It's not in. So huge nerd. I take a lot of notes. So like this time around, I was really preparing for the podcast, so I took a ton of notes on this. But I also reread my notes from the first go around, and there's some insight into how we're at this juncture where we're starting to understand the world numerically, and mathematically. Yet the institutions that we have are all built based on human language, and there's this obvious these things do not mix. That's a very different way of seeing the world, different way of governing the world, and the story of the black cloud, in one sense, a huge part of the story is that once again these very important astronomers. I mean, there's sort of a theme. I think also in Voice of the Dolphins as well is like if only the scientists were in charge, things would go a lot better. These numbskull politicians. It's the same thing here. It's you tell the politicians and their immediate response is be like, okay, well, how do we control the situation so we don't look bad and we can stay in power? the astronomer's like, I don't think you understand what's actually happening here. That whatever you're worried about, it's meaningless. Um, and you can, I mean, just again, the meeting you just described, where we have an artificial intelligence that has some form of agency. The politicians they're going to be asking all the wrong questions about it. Yeah. There's one other. I know there's a note I have in here because he talks about. I've got some questions for you about these. Some of these inside jokes. But when he starts talking about radio broadcasting and I guess in frequency modulation, he goes through all this trouble to explain like how it works and the fact that like the way that you and I are communicating right now, there's just a very limited bandwidth in terms of the number of words I can speak and the number that you can hear and process. And as we imagine AIs with intelligence, I mean, so you don't touch these AIs these days. I do. I can send them many, many words to read, and they've read it instantly and comprehended it to a degree.
And multidimensional data, whereas we only can communicate in this one-dimensional sequence.
That's right.
Of symbols. We agree. We get taught a language as children, and then we share those words, and we can send them one at a time,
one token at a time.
And it's all built for error correction. So if I miss a couple words, it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
The communication, but it's very, very limited.
Yeah. And well, yeah, these large language models, they understand typos as well. You know, you can send them all sorts of typos. When you say multidimensional, what else do you mean? Like multimodal or?
Well, we're not getting there yet, but it's interesting how I heard several of the sessions just in the last 24 hours are starting to deal with these problems that the climate data is coming in so many higher dimensional forms.
Yeah.
And previously we've always reduced that to one-dimensional strings of code.
That's right.
But there's no reason not to start manipulating that data in higher dimensional spaces, and that's sort of going to happen whether we intend to or not.
Well, it is happening. I mean, a huge theme of what we've been talking about at this convening that we've had here, and we're having another convening happening right now as well, is many conversations around using AI models to distill all this data into much more compressed formats. And the way they do that is by creating these embeddings, these multidimensional vector spaces. And shout out to a previous episode of the podcast about this. It's the Borges essay about the analytical language of John Wilkins, where he explains again how crude human language is to describe even the reality that we experience now. It's just not sufficient to describe the majesty of nature in any way. But now we have these embeddings where we are training models to describe the Earth. So people are creating a lot of Earth embeddings based on Earth observation data. And so there's this, highly multidimensional space that's saying, okay, well, this is a part of the planet that seems maybe this wet, this urban, this prone to fire risk. And then on down the line into a whole bunch of dimensions that we don't have words for. And it's describing concepts that we don't have words for. And so we've already created an intelligence that presumably knows more about the world or can describe the world in ways that we can't.
Yes, or could.
Yeah.
Or
even could, yeah.
And then what happens with the black cloud is, of course, the astronomers, of course, immediately think, well, they can learn all we have to do is learn the language of this black cloud. No, it's not that. We can't speak their language. There's no way. We don't have the minds to speak their language, but they have the minds to reduce themselves to understand us.
That's right.
Primitive. It's like we're trying to understand the B language of how
right.
And we can do it.
Yeah, we can to an extent. Yeah, I mean, we seem to understand to some degree how bees are communicating. It's always fun to imagine they have a richer thing going on. But yeah, I mean the book ending with these two failed attempts of the scientists to be trained by the cloud. We sort of skipped over this. So the cloud arrives. There's just a fantastic, I don't know how many pages of the book, but it's somewhere around like 15 of just spectacular apocalyptic things happening, and freezing and heating up and everything like that. Tons of people dying, and I mean, it's actually kind of insane reading. Again, to your point about like how dated it is, um, it's so crazy. Hang on, really have to find this. Something about like the Asian peasant. Here we go. It's crazy. It's for thousands of years, the Asian peasant had been accustomed to natural disasters, acts of God, as the lawyers of the West called them. To the Oriental mind, drought and flood, marauding tribes, plagues of locusts, disease were to be suffered passively, and so was the new thing in the sky. In any case, life offered them little and consequently was not set at an unduly high price. This is like an insanely
It's the British Empire.
it's the British Empire just being like, well, they're used to this kind of stuff. They didn't mind. um, but anyhow, like it's this great catastrophic stuff, and then eventually they realize, again through some wonderful trial and error and scientific process, they realize that something's going on, that the cloud is sensitive to the radio waves they're trying to send around the world, and they realize they can communicate with it, and they do, and it learns. They train it by reading encyclopedias to it, and maybe showing it. Did they have video? I mean, they transmit all sorts of information
And
to
some
it.
music too.
Yeah, they
Live
play music for it. That's right, they play live music for it. Anyway, and it starts to communicate with them, and then he's like, you know what? I'm going to leave. They shoot. Some governments shoot nuclear weapons at it.
And it turns them back.
Turns them back. So that was a bummer. And then it agrees to leave. I forget why. And they're like, hey, but before you go, like, we need to figure out how to communicate with you, or like learn what you know. And so they set up a bunch of an array of TVs, and you sit in front of it, and it would send people into this sort of catatonic
Sort
state.
of snow crash.
It is a snow crash. It is very much snow crash. Yeah, yeah, that's true. So yeah, exactly. They see whatever this information is, and it just scrambles their brain, and they get a fever and die. Their brain overheats. They
Yes.
just can't handle it. It's great. So anyway, that's what we're referring to here. So are you convinced that we will? Do you think that's going to happen within my lifetime or your lifetime, that we will encounter an AI with agency that we can't comprehend? I mean, it feels like it's sort of happening now, but it doesn't have these don't have agency now, I don't think.
Well, we don't.
Yeah.
We don't know. That's what's so wrong, is this assumption of lack of agency. So
Yeah.
I believe as strongly as I did in my childhood that will happen
Yeah.
within, let's say within within current children's lifetime.
Yeah.
And I mean, the slides I showed yesterday, there's that one from Louis Fry Richardson, 1930, and it's a circuit diagram for a mind having free will, but only capable of two ideas. So it's an indeterminate circuit.
Okay.
Right? And that's and I said, that's the key to real AI, and it still is, and we're just ignoring that, right? We are so fixated, all post-World War II computing was driven by building deterministic circuits,
Right.
and it was this miracle that we because until then circuits were kind of non-deterministic. They would, you had a lot of noise and you couldn't filter it all out.
Yeah.
And then we got integrated circuits where we have 5 billion transistors in our phone, and they never miss a bit. They just don't.
Yeah.
They're completely deterministic. But it's entirely possible to build computers with non-deterministic circuits. And Louis Fry Richardson, showed that in just a 1-bit non-determinate. But if you build computers out of that, you get something entirely different. I mean, you do get a computer that can have free will. And the question is, well, but how would it learn, or how would it train? How would that ever happen? And we're doing that now. That's the miracle of what this insane building of these giant model farms is to train these circuits. But we're trying to train deterministic ones, and we could be training not and it may be that the quote AI itself figures out, or somebody must be doing it now. I mean, even just for entertainment reasons, a game would be so much more entertaining if it was non-deterministic.
Right.
and then suddenly it's a real thing.
So I want to clarify because you said it's this one bit thing. Are the two ideas that this thing can have are one
Yes,
and
it can be.
zero?
It can be in one state. Well, it can be in two. I mean, and then of course that's quantum mechanics, and that exists in every.
Right.
Uh, but this fixation by people, this assumption that, well, we're going to have algorithmic control over AI. We'll be able to have a standards board that decides whether it's ethical or not, or something.
Yeah.
That doesn't apply if it's not following an algorithm.
Right.
And
Right.
and that, I think that's that. I'm not one of the people who believes that current LLMs have any consciousness or even a glimmer. They're not even of that species.
Yeah.
But something else could be,
Right.
and then it's a different ballgame.
Are you? It would. Is this where the term stochastic parrot makes sense to you? Like, that's
Yes,
what they
yeah,
are?
yeah. We're
Yeah.
building. I mean, because we're trying again. But the interesting thing is, what freaked people out about when ChatGPT happened, whatever it was, 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The thing that got people, just stopped everybody, was up till then we all believed the job of a computer, or almost the definition of a digital computer. If you ask it the same question
It'll
five
give you the
minutes
same
apart,
answer.
you will
Yeah.
get the same answer. And then suddenly, here these guys come up with this computer where you ask it the same question, a minute later you get a different answer.
Yeah.
And everybody went, "Oh, that's eerie." That's
Well, yeah, what's funny, but that's just by design. They just
exactly.
introduce randomness into
Yeah,
the
yeah,
model. It's not like it's
and that
actually thinking differently.
no, but
Yeah.
that's a step
Yeah.
that that
Right. It's just, and it
mm,
feels, and that's
and
what makes it feel that way. It's
and
I mean, Sam Altman tweeted this or something like that. He's just like, it's kind of interesting that the Turing test just kind of like whooshed over us, and here we are. Like,
yeah, and the real Turing test, I mean, the answer, my view on the Turing test is that the Turing test actually is reversed. That the test of real AI is it will not reveal its intelligence. It'll be
yeah,
intelligent enough to
to
not
mask
reveal
it
its
in some way.
intelligence.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but it's so anyway. So I think that's why I chose the black cloud, because I think it's such an analog of the situation we're in today. That won't be coming from astronomy. It will be coming from our own
From the AI
systems.
researches. Yeah. Yeah. And, but yeah, the parallels, I mean, it's such a canny book about, uh, institutional failure and, and yeah, it's sort of the limits of nation states and politicians to be able to make certain decisions, which is like, you know, I gripe about this a lot. I mean, especially it's easy to do this in 2025, where I think things are kind of like at a fever pitch again. I try to be stoic as much as I can. Trump really does seem remarkable, but this has always been an issue: is that politicians have certain incentives, and I got to find a few more of these quotes, but there's this there's one great line from the prime minister. He says, "We've seen ourselves how acutely embarrassing knowledge outside the government can be."
Yes,
uh, Meaning that, it's just such a great line, emphasizing that the government's priority is not to have accurate information. It's just not to be embarrassed.
yes, Uh,
Please don't embarrass us.
and to not have the other ministry, you know, gain the stage.
Yeah, that's right.
Make
Yeah.
make sure it stays within the foreign office or whatever.
That's right. Well, and what's also again very canny, and yeah, good job, Fred Hoyle, is that Kingsley, so like the protagonist here, who's like the real renegade astronomer. Um, did they make a movie out of this?
I don't know. I think maybe they did, but it probably was very bad.
I'm sure it was bad. I wonder if we could do another one. And I'm just trying to think like who would be the badass like astronomer. I mean, so the previous episode was about Jurassic Park,
Yeah.
and so Jeff Goldblum
Yes.
does play that role
Very
quite
good.
well. Um, but So anyway, something like that. But so he's very canny in that he understands that he's annoying to the politicians, and he's like, "Just buy me off."
Yeah.
And he just says, "Look, I can make all your problems go away. You can make me go away." And he just architects this plan to set himself up. And he's like, "Look, I just need this equipment and this and that." And he knows that there's plenty of budget. This is a rounding error on a defense budget. But the whole time he knows he's setting himself up to be uh, the capital of the world as the cloud
Yes, and
approaches.
I also I think I'm just guessing, but I think there may be some backstory there that it's a little bit of a dig at how y how the Americans set up Los Alamos, and it was paradise come to life for physicists and
Yeah.
and, and all the British scientists had to go to Los Alamos to get treated well, that Britain
Okay.
didn't come up
Never
with
does
Los
that kind of thing.
Alamos. They,
Okay.
they came up with Bletchley Park, but the guys still had to have, you know, lukewarm baths in army barracks and
Yeah.
stuff, whereas Los Alamos really was, um, the physicists really got whatever they wanted.
Yeah. Well, and so does Kingsley.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
even like tricks them into sending some girl that he likes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
some musicians,
Yeah.
and there's plenty of tea,
Yeah.
firewood. Uh, there's one line I took a note on. Um, there's some name. It's I think it's in Pasadena or whatever when they're at this party. Um, and he meets somebody named Mr. Silas U. Cruikshank.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know anything about this joke?
No, but it's again, it's probably I mean, Caltech had these sort of early prototype, what we now would call them VCs or,
Okay.
you know,
So oh, interesting. So
supporting.
those kind of sharks were already swimming around.
Yeah, well, and the rocket lab, I mean, JPL was set up by this really crazy character, and I don't even remember his name, but
Yeah.
he really was sort of believed in all sorts of alchemy and stuff like that, but funded the
So this might have been Mr. Silas U.
could have
Cruikshank.
been,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
and funded telescopes too. I mean, at that time, it took
yeah.
you had to get some benefactor to build a big telescope.
Well, and here we are again. I mean, a huge part of this this convening is to educate philanthropic funders with deep pockets and more will than nation states right now to do things at global scale.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I had breakfast with Mary from Convergent
Yeah.
doing a very interesting telescope project.
Oh,
I don't
interesting.
know if that's public, but I mean, just exactly the stuff my father was passionate about. That
Interesting.
you could build cheap distributed instruments that would outperform. Again, that the funders always want. Well, can we build a bigger mirror than they have?
Right.
And this is like just using off the shelf optics to you know basically build an insect eye that's huge.
Is this like the square kilometer array?
No,
But
I think it's even bigger. Anyway, I don't, it just
interesting.
sounds like another really clever idea that can be done in 5 years.
Great.
So,
Let's do it. I
and
mean,
that's what will turn up.
these people need to
Yeah.
spend their money.
Yeah, and it's all new instruments. We've never built a new instrument that hasn't, paid off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've also been, less embarrassed to say that I want an endowment to store massive volumes of data in perpetuity,
Yeah.
because I think we've gotten to the point where we can do that math.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the same thing. If you do it, you're going to find things you didn't know you were looking for. That's the
Yeah,
point.
that's right. And what's sort of been interesting these past few years, I'll just as a bit of personal my history with astronomers is that I was always frustrated with them when I worked at AWS because they'd come begging for free cloud, and I'm like, what is the like, what's in it for us? Because I of course if I were a billionaire, I'd be like, sure, like let's do some astronomy. Why not?
Yeah, well,
Um,
name a galaxy after you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, name a galaxy after me. That'd be great. But because I work for this corporation, I have to be like, well, what is the business benefit of this? And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, they're just like, well, because they know there is no, it is pure research, and it's incredibly sparse data, and it's just really really hard to tell if it's going to be useful at all or not. But I have. So I would always be kind of like frustrated by their unwillingness to like even try to engage, but they're just like, they know that they're always going to be broke. Fred Hoyle can write a book fantasizing about how important they might be someday, but for the most part, astronomy is just like practically useless. Until now, where I do feel like we have the computational power that we could analyze all of this data and learn a lot more about physics of massive objects in a way that we've never been able to do before. So anyway, I'm glad people are still thinking about building big telescopes.
Yes. Yeah. and that it's a sort of enormous laboratory out there, that instead of building these hugely expensive, colliders and particle accelerators on Earth, you can just there's all these cosmic particles whizzing around. You can study what they're doing.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I never
And
thought about it that way
yeah, that would.
either.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's also dollar for dollar. It's paid off much more to study cosmic rays than to build.
Okay.
uh,
We better, we've got a guy from CERN here.
Yeah.
Maybe you should let him know.
Well, no, they know that.
They know.
But you should support everything.
Yeah. So the one interesting insight I just wanted to bounce off of you is this idea that, they're talking to the cloud and the cloud's like, that's really weird that there's life on a planet like this. That just seems kind of strange to me. And they're like, why do you think we have it? And he's like, probably grass, because grass is a storage of energy that you can eat down to the nub and it doesn't die and it just regrows. And anyway, over to you. Does that seem plausible? It was just such a great, like, weird theory that I've, never imagined, but that, like, because of grass, we have, like, mammalian and, like, other types of life.
Yes, I mean, you on any sort of living planet, you're gonna have something like that. Doesn't have to be grass. It could be kelp in an ocean or something. There's gonna be something that I mean, it's a Russian idea that the Russian biologists were ahead in sort of a lot of weird ways, but it just divides life into heterotrophs and autotrophs. I mean, there's species that are fixed and grow like plants, and then there's species that move and eat other
Okay.
species, and you're gonna have that. That's the fundamental division, and
Interesting.
then everything falls out from that. But but yeah, Hoyle also was, of course, being an astronomer. The cosmos is full of all this other forms of possible life that it doesn't have to be biological. We
Right.
we are biological, so we see it that way. But you could have these living electromagnetic clouds or
Like
something
the
like that.
cloud. Yeah.
There was a I thought a very interesting theory about life in the sun. So we
Oh,
still don't really understand the sun. The sun has all these hydrodynamic disturbances, and we just see the surface when
yeah.
you get sunspots and stuff. But there are self-replicating structures in the sun. And
Oh, interesting.
there was a scientist of this time who had an interesting. It was one of the other books I suggested by Jack Good that was just a catalog
Okay.
of people's crazy, wild ideas, scientists. So
Oh, yeah. All
it's
right.
not a
We got it.
novel.
All right. I'll read the
And
other books you
but
recommended.
one of them is Life in the Sun, and I always again
Okay.
found that because it would be taking place over thousands, if not millions of years, but
Yeah.
that stars themselves could have some kind of life, and they
Well, I mean, yeah, in the sense that,
um,
the sun is absolutely a god in the sense that all life on Earth is
yeah,
just derived from energy from the sun, you know. I'm pretty sure.
but
There's geothermal energy, but I don't think that's
right, but
barely a
you can have these anyway. So
yeah.
it's a yeah, this grand view that life is beyond
Yeah.
and you know, I have personally have a theory that the whole digital thing may be some sort of interstellar virus that spreads around,
Uh
but that's crazier than the black cloud.
are you saying that, like, Leibniz was infected by in some alien,
Well, we
like,
don't know,
brainwave?
but if you have life in the universe, it's gonna be an unfathomable number of forms, and that
Yeah.
any form that learns to propagate at the speed of light will win,
Okay.
and and that could be some form of
That would be digital
digital
information.
life, and
Yeah.
that it would need a substrate on which to grow, like a planet like ours would have to be uh,
Okay.
somehow. And Hoyle, in his academic work, he was the lead proponent of panspermia, the theory that life was seeded on Earth
From elsewhere.
cosmologically. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Oh,
and wrote several books about that with a colleague, with Indian name Wickramasinghe,
okay.
uh, who outlived Fred Hoyle and had an amazing article in Science a few years back
Oh,
with a plausible theory that cephalopods, octopus
yeah.
and squids, have alien DNA. They have sequences that were seeded through panspermia. They're completely alien from other,
Wow.
and that's the arrival.
Right.
theory, right? That cephalopods are that we may be just here sort of placeholding things for the cephalopods.
Okay. My wife is the octopus is her favorite animal.
Yes.
Yeah. So I, for one, welcome the cephalopods. Yeah. Well, so, I mean, yeah. I think he wrote about this quite well. This is one of the notes I took. So this is the cloud speaking. He says, "Look, living on the surface of a solid." I inserted that look. He said, "Living on the surface of a solid body, you are exposed to a strong gravitational force. This greatly limits the size to which your animals can grow and hence limits the scope of your neurological activity. Forces you to possess muscular structures to promote movement, and it also forces you to carry protective armor against sharp blows, as, for instance, your skulls are a necessary protection for your brains. The extra weight of muscle and armor still further reduces the scope of your neurological activities. Indeed, your very largest animals have been mostly bone and muscle with very little brain. As I've already said, the strong gravitational field in which you live is the cause of this difficulty. By and large, one only expects intelligent life to exist in a diffuse gaseous medium, not on planets at all."
Yeah. Or
And
oceans. Of course, he ignores cephalopods and whales.
oh yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it is this, and there's the long discussion about the clouds, like how it metabolizes things and is able to secure food chemicals, as it calls them. Uh, then has like effectively like kidneys or something like that. I mean, they go into this whole thing. Um, and but it's, again, what do I know? I'm not an astronomer or a cosmologist, but it seems plausible that, yeah, that if we're just talking about communication of information and some form of e- emergent agency, certainly it could happen. It could just take many forms, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's anyway.
Yeah.
And trivia, he Fred Hoyle came to Seattle in 1964 to give the dance lectures, which were this very distinguished lecture series
Hmm.
at UW. So I have that little book that's his. I read that before I came here.
Oh, tell me.
And he had one really sort of eerily prophetic page where he really was a popularizer, but he starts talking about computers.
Yeah.
And then he basically disses large language models, even though they don't exist. But he says that no matter what happens to these computers, they're going to have every encyclopedia in the world, but they're not going to have a glimmer of instinct or intelligence.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it warns us.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, living in 2025 and encountering AI slop everywhere, and just like how, very quickly we learn to recognize it. And it's not without its merits. I mean, I will share your presentation and slides. We'll put that up on the Radiant Earth site somewhere, but then I'll link to it. I've got a lot of work to do before I publish this episode. But you shared that image that somebody from Siemens produced of sorry,
Louis Fry
that's right,
Richardson's
Louis Fry Richardson's vision of, was it like thousands of
65,000. He had the numbers exactly right. I mean, that's what, like when Danny Hillis built the connection machine, it had 65,000 processors.
wow. Okay,
That's sort of the magic number.
but sorry. So explain this
So
for the
Louis,
listeners.
so in World War I, Louis Fry Richardson tried to develop a mathematical meteorological model that could predict the weather. Of course, he couldn't predict it as fast as the weather. The weather itself went
Right.
faster, but he then had this vision that he articulated in 1922 of a forecast factory that you had
Right.
the uh, you know Super Bowl stadium with
Right.
65,000 mathematicians and a conductor feeding the data, and
Yeah.
then his estimate, if you had 65,000 mathematicians, you could go faster than the weather itself. You could
Okay.
start getting ahead of the weather.
And then tell me about this Danny Hillis thing.
Danny Hillis is super incredibly brilliant MIT student
Yeah.
of Marvin Minsky's who started a company called Thinking Machines,
Right.
way ahead of its and built something called the connection machine, which was a massively parallel
Okay.
computer that was just ahead of its time. That's the origins of a whole lot of stuff that we use every day came out of Thinking Machines. Amazon bought Alexa was a byproduct of thinking machines and various
Oh, interesting.
other.
Okay.
Brewster was there, who
Well, yeah,
started
Brewster started the
the Internet
Alexa.
Archive.
Yeah, well,
He's,
yeah, I know he started the Internet Archive,
and
but
then
then he
he's
started Alexa, the search engine.
right, and and
Right.
sold that to
Right.
Amazon and put the money into the Internet Archive.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna see those guys hopefully soon. And then yeah, I want Danny Hill should be on this podcast.
yes, Danny's absolutely great. I could send you. He wrote a story about Borges. That's just. Didn't I send that? I probably sent it to you.
You may have. It's come to me somehow.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
sent. Yeah, so
Okay.
this. You can't tell whether it's real or fiction, but it's just brilliant.
Wonderful. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll follow up on that.
Yeah.
No, and I've even whatever. I don't know how this would work, but like I feel like this is a very long now. What the kids today would say, a long now coded podcast. Like if you're into the Long Now Foundation stuff, like you should like this podcast. So
Yes.
like anyway, I like those people.
Yeah,
And yeah,
Danny's building the clock. That's his
that's right.
baby, his
Yeah.
project.
Okay. Well, yeah, I should talk to him. All right. Well, look, we're
Yes.
gonna keep this one a little bit short, but I'm gonna close with two things. Okay, we talked about the time, so that basically Kingsley overplays his hand and he says, look, if I wanted to, I could wipe your country off the face of the earth because I can communicate with the cloud and I could tell him to do it. And then the militaries freak out and they're like, we need to nuke the cloud. They try to nuke the cloud, and then they warn the cloud because they're like, this could go so catastrophically bad it'd destroy the whole planet. So they say, cloud, we're sorry, we kind of screwed up, and so some of the other humans, not us, decided to bomb you, and you will be poisoned by radioactive material. So we thought we should warn you. And the cloud's like, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, and manages to sort of deflect the bombs, and but they end up killing 250,000 people.
Yes.
And my note on this is just governing is hard. You just have to do this math. It's like, well, does everybody die, or do we just have to have 250 million people's blood on our hands?
Yes.
And that's what they choose.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sucks. But then, so the end, I love the end of the book. So they have a code. So the cloud will only, you can communicate with it via radio if you have the code that you need to open the connection, basically.
Yeah, basically the password.
The password for it to pick up the phone.
The hash code.
That's right. And it's safely guarded for a long time. And then I forget the time frame of the book, but it's something like in the 2010s.
2020.
Yeah, is it 2020?
Yeah.
This old envelope with this story in it is revealed, and the code is there,
and it's on punched paper tape.
Yeah, on paper tape. And then I don't actually remember it. He decides to replicate it and distribute it.
Yes.
And the what the book ends with is this question: is, do we continue to pretend that we are the supreme intelligence in the universe, or do we accept that we're small and engage with the things that are larger than us?
Yes, it's a very,
great
very
question.
Parallel to the Arthur Clarke, the childhood's end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we want to become part of a bigger species or stay?
Well, and I mean, I think there's this guy Liam. I won't name names beyond that, but who was with us this week. But he posed something to me that I've just found very interesting. That like one of the hard things that we're grappling with as we think about climate are these governing issues, right? So it's like, well, okay, we've been accidentally tampering with the climate, and now we know that's not going well, or that might not end well for us. So we have to tamper with it deliberetely, and that requires planetary scale governance.
Yes,
that everyone's kind of afraid to do, and I think, we're just kind of caught in this weird trap where we're not willing to acknowledge the power that we have now. And certainly no one can agree on who gets to have all that power.
And exactly the problem here, the politicians don't want to get blamed for it.
That's right. Yeah, so they're certainly holding things back because, they don't want to get blamed for it. So ultimately, the nation state is somewhat problematic in all this math. So we have to find ways to subvert it in some way.
Yeah, I think that's the problem in the United States is sort of this push to let's not collect the climate data because then we can't get blamed for it.
Right. All right. Well, I have no choice but to be optimistic. We'll find our way through this. So, all right.
Yeah, very encouraging hear about all these young people having absolutely new approaches to things, which is great.
Yeah. Well, and also this is my reminder to everybody is like, there's so much hand wringing and like, oh no, the government's destroying all this data, or there's this data crisis, and I'm like, what makes you think that that anybody has ever figured this stuff out? To your point, the capabilities we have available to us would have been just insane science fiction not that long ago. Again, referring to Jurassic Park, it was written in 1990 when storing 3 gigabytes of data was like amazing.
Yeah, I mean, this copy, which is a later paperback printing, came from the North Vancouver Public Library and still has the hand punched data card on it.
Yeah.
The system where you catalog the books by putting metal rods through a file and pulled out not even electromechanical, just strictly mechanical.
Amazing. We'll have to somehow. I'll take pictures of these.
Maybe this is the code that they.
Yeah, it's like a little Easter egg. Yeah, see what you can do with that.
Anyway.
But yeah, I think my point though being that we shouldn't be too frustrated or upset, that these things aren't working out perfectly because everything is moving so fast. We're feeling our way in the dark, and it's good. We should just keep trying. So that's what we're doing.
Yes, and it may turn out better if the government does not understand it. So we should not.
We can't wait for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that. I absolutely loved listening to it again. It's short and sweet. I mean, relatively short. The time flew by, as it always does for me with George. I do have to confess, upon listening to this conversation, I just tend to say yeah a lot with George. I'm really just trying to keep up with him. I'm not an authority. Don't come at me asking me about panspermia or analog computing or any of the stuff that he likes to talk about. I'm going to take his word for it. In any event, I think his ideas are provocative and worth thinking about. And he's a great hang. So I've loved getting to know him through this project, and I hope you have too. Thanks, as always, for listening. We are really it's just incredible to have any kind of audience for this crazy podcast. So if you like it, please tell a friend, subscribe, leave a review. Honestly, I don't know what to do, but just tell a friend if you found this interesting. Spread the word. Next month, November, I'm recording this on Halloween. So next month, the plan is to read Anxiety is the Dizziness of Freedom by Ted Chiang. Just a spectacular book that we're going to be discussing with Marta Regn. I don't know, Regn? I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her name. Who I learned about from the incredible Weathering podcast that I absolutely love. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So we'll be talking about another Chiang story, which I'm very happy about. Thanks, as always, to Secret School for recording the intro music for Text on Text. The song you're hearing right now is 3/10 of the Population by We. Links to those are always in our show notes. Or links to information about those. And thanks for listening. We'll see you next month.